Has your child ever come home from school insisting on a fact? So wrong, it actually made your brain hurt? My son Leo is 7 years old, bright, sharp, with a memory like a steel trap. Last Tuesday, he hopped into the truck after school and said, with total confidence, "Dad, did you know glass is actually a liquid? It just moves, really slowly." He pointed at the wavy windows of our old 1920s farmhouse and added, "Mrs. Gable says the glass is thicker at the bottom because it's been dripping down for hundreds of years." She showed us a whole slideshow. I froze. Because I'm a materials engineer, I spend 40 hours a week studying solids at the molecular level. I felt my eye twitch. I knelt down and said gently, "Buddy, that's actually a myth. Glass is an amorphous solid. Those old windows are thicker at the bottom because of how they were manufactured a century ago. That's just how craftsmen installed them." Leo stared at me like I'd said the moon was made of ham. "No way, Dad. Mrs. Gable has been teaching for 30 years. She even had a diagram of flowing molecules on the smartboard. You're just a dad. She's a teacher." That's when I knew I couldn't let this go. If he's learning fake physics at 7, what will he believe at 17? Perfect timing though. That Friday was Community Experts Day. Parents were invited to talk about their jobs. I didn't just bring my laptop. I brought a real 2,000-year-old Roman glass jar, borrowed from our lab's archive. When I walked into the classroom, 25 kids sat on the rug, surrounded by colorful cubbies and half-finished art. Mrs. Gable introduced me with a tight smile. I held up the ancient jar and asked calmly, "Does this look like a puddle to you?" The kids shook their heads. If glass were a liquid, even a slow one, this jar would be a flat pancake by now. But it isn't. It's still a jar. I watched Mrs. Gable stiffen. Her face turned a dusty shade of purple. "Well, Mr. Thompson," she stammered, "the textbook clearly states glass has liquid properties that cause it to slump over time." I nodded, then said, "Actually," I pulled up the American Journal of Physics on the projector. This was debunked decades ago. And more importantly, I swiped again. The state science standards now list the liquid glass idea as a misconception teachers are required to correct. Silence. You could hear a pencil drop. The kids stared back and forth, mouths open. Mrs. Gable said nothing. She marched to the back of the room and started organizing papers, loudly. When the bell rang, she pulled me into the hallway. "You just destroyed my credibility," she hissed. "How am I supposed to manage a class when they think I'm a liar? I have a master's degree." I stayed calm. "I'm not calling you a liar. I'm calling you incorrect. Science isn't about protecting ego. It's about seeking the truth." She snapped back. "I've taught this the same way for 3 decades. I'm not changing my curriculum for a showing-off parent." The fallout came fast. That Friday, Leo brought home a quiz. Question: Is glass a solid, liquid, or gas? He wrote, "Solid." Mrs. Gable circled it in red, wrote wrong, and slapped a huge 0 at the top. My son cried. He thought telling the truth was a mistake. That was it. I skipped the teacher and went straight to the superintendent with the quiz, the data, and the state guidelines. A month later, the school updated all science